Look at us now, tip to tip.
Ooh, Jesus.
Oh.
Shout out to Morning Kombat.
Do you want a margarita?
Yes!
My God!
It's us doing what we love. It's time to bang. Oh, yeah, get fired up. It's the show they couldn't kill. We're still standing. It's Morning Kombat. It's back in your absolute face hole. Monday, March 3rd, 2025. And what a wild weekend in the combat space we have to break down from everything that went on in the Gervonta Davis, Lamont Roach Jr. PBC on Prime PPV to UFC Apex and people sticking fingers in other people's eyes. Hey, I'm Brian Campbell, that BBC with that BDE. Yeah, the double A alpha over here. I'm one half of your hosting duo from my basement in suburban Connecticut. Yes. All right. How's that apathy? Let's go. Yeah. And that guy next to me, oh my God, he's the best damn combat sports analyst who never had the gall to get in the fighting circle, right? Well, okay, I'm just being a dick. Hey, it's Luke Thomas from Washington, D.C. There he is, guys. Yeah.
What's up? What's up, BD? Well, what's up, B? Hey, 3 cheers for BC on a big-ass Saturday, huh? 3 cheers for him. There it is. How did you celebrate after doing a Tank Davis pay-per-view in terms of, like, you know, relaxing, kicking your feet up? I'm going to guess you cranked your hog at your hotel room while looking at something on your phone, and you ate popcorn till you fell asleep.
You know, it's interesting. My hotel room came with an 8th row chair, and I settled deep into it, put on YouTube, and just, you know, smelt my own farts. What a time to be alive. Thank you for the love. Appreciate as well all the love from the MK faithful. It was a fantastic night at the office, even with the controversy that, of course, we're going to get into. But Luke, did you have a nice weekend in the nation's capital? Maybe there's no splash pads open this time of year for young toques, but I don't know. Did you get your toe spacers? What do you got going on in your person?
Oh, I got my toe spacers on right now. They got them on right now. Yeah, I got to fix these feet. I got my first pedicure for whatever that's worth. Now, people, I didn't realize this. There's numerous levels to pedicuring, which I did not know. I, of course, did not do like the coloring of the nails. If people want to do that, that's cool. It's not for me. I just got them trimmed and then cleaned, and then I called it a day. My wife and kid kept going. Whatever. My feet are disgusting. My feet are disgusting.
I was going to say, did your foot surgeon quit instantly after that job or what? You know,
I couldn't believe the wreckage of dead skin she was able to pull off of my feet. But
well, I can, because you sent me the disgusting brush or the cheese grater.
Hold on, I have to show the picture. I have to show it because this is truly unbelievable.
Look, we're not that far away in our friendship, if you want to call it that, from you sending me actual pictures of your craps, which really would be the end. That would be the end point right there.
That would be, that's a little much, but I just want folks to see this. She took one of those cheese grater things. This is 1 foot. This is 1 foot of dead skin. Is that insane or what?
Yeah, that's
a lot,
pretty darn
right?
Gross, Luke. Okay. You know what I mean? Yeah. Wow. Okay.
So that was cool. That was cool. Yeah.
All right. I hope you listeners out there are doing well. Thank you for supporting this here podcast. We get through some storms, but we fight through them. We're still standing. You can follow us below. If you've been on this journey and you haven't let the world know, how about liking this video, subscribing to what we're doing here on YouTube? If you're catching us on an audio only platform, well, thank you for listening as well. Also, Luke, did you hear some of our core listeners have their own show on Just Bleed Radio? Did you know about this? Lazy Bed, Danger Mouse, and producer/sex purchaser Dave Sandine. You know this?
I did not know this. I'm actually hearing about this for the first time. What's the story here?
Morning Glory. It is a MMA podcast, I guess. Hey, they want me on, I'll be on it. All right.
I'll do it. Yeah, I'll do it. Sure.
All right. All right. Shout out to our people. Thank you very much. Okay. Here we go. Enough talking them up. Our third member of our fantastic team here. He's from the ballsack of an Australian. He loves Long Island. And yeah, there he is, Luke Nostino of the Main Card Minute. Hey, brother.
What's up, guys? How are you?
Good. Did you enjoy that star-studded Apex event over the weekend?
Yeah, dude. Asu Almabayev, he would have won if he didn't get poked in the... No, I'm kidding. He was getting his ass beat. Tough night. Esteban Ribovic won, in my opinion. Pretty bummed about that.
I think a lot of people feel that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
LIL, you know what I love the most about Saturday? The
What?
2-man Anik Dom Cruz booth. I'm serious. That was awesome.
Yeah. I
from
like
what
them
I saw.
together too. A lot of people don't like Dom Cruz on commentary. I actually love Dom
Yeah,
Cruz.
they're
Yeah,
wrong.
but you know what? They did the retirement package for him.
It was a little
Was
awful.
like, dude, in like a study hall. Dude, they literally, it felt you because so I ride the train all the time. There's one train car, BC, called the quiet car. It's like right behind first class. Anybody can sit in it, but the only
there's
rule
one
is
ride. I know about that, but keep
no,
going.
well, the rule is you can't be on your phone. There's no loud talking. They call it a library like atmosphere, and they will tell you to shut up if you're breaking the rules. Dude, they did a highlight package for Dom Cruz in the quiet car on Amtrak. I couldn't believe how like it was a nice package. Don't get me wrong. Like they paused, but they did a good job like building it out. But oh my god, man, like it just felt dead. I don't
the
think
only
that was just me
difference
that's
between
saying
the
that.
Apex and an Amtrak car is one of them doesn't have a half Armenian man blowing up the commode, right? I mean, just hold it till you get to the studio. What are we
Can't
doing?
do that,
here?
brother. Can't do that.
All righty. All right. We will close the show, of course, with DMs from Donks. Have you seen this shit? And you can contact the show. In fact, we urge you. Can you make fan subs great again? Maybe Elon Musk can, but why don't you try going to morningkombat@gmail.com right now? Send your dead wrongs. Daz out there in Hawaii, my man. Mahalo to you, broski. All right. And your natural rival, Telvin Kipapa. But before we start the show, Luke, and I wish I had the asset ready. I dropped the ball on here. We got to shout out one of our best fans, supporters, really the only guy in the MK community who's really, really willing to put you and I right on his package, if you know what I mean. And that is California's Christian DeGiro, the amateur MMA assassin who is climbing the ranks. He won over the weekend. He won with a bloody nose too, because that guy's a fighter, by the way. That guy's got a backbone, and he had MK right on the package. I can't wait to corner him one day, Coach Lastori style. You know that's my dream. But I want to get this guy on the show one day. Would you allow that? Would you ever?
Yes, I would.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Well, there you go.
I would not stand in the way of that at all.
He's my hero and dig hero. Shout out to that brother.
He's
the same.
A dig hero. Yes.
Yeah, damn right. Unless you have anything else to say, Luke, we should get into this wild and wacky weekend if you're ready.
We got a lot to talk about. Let's do it.
All right. A reminder that today's episode is presented by DraftKings, and you know that DraftKings, the crown is yours. Thank you very much. Topic number 1. I know you guys want your MMA, but the first 4 topics on MMAfighting.com right now are boxing because it was big over the weekend in Brooklyn, Barclays Center, PBC on Prime PPV, and Gervonta Tank Davis, the lightweight title holder, escaping with a majority draw against amateur rival DMV favorite Lamont Roach Jr. But oh boy, there was heavy criticism, controversies going on in Brooklyn. Luke Thomas, from referee Steve Willis and the New York State Athletic Commission's replay official, seemingly egregiously blowing that round 9 knockdown when Tank willingly took a knee, to, I don't know, Roach outworking and outlanding Davis and still settling for a draw. In your opinion, was Lamont Roach merely unlucky and this is boxing, or was this another black eye to the sport? And was Lamont Roach robbed of something, meaning a victory, meaning millions of dollars that could have been rightfully his?
No, there's simply no question Lamont Roach was robbed. I have a high opinion of Lamont Roach. I have a high opinion of his gym, of his father, of his family, and I thought he would do well. I want to say before we talk about anything else, he overperformed even what I thought was possible. And it looked to me like he overperformed what Tank Davis thought was possible, and to an extent, probably PBC as well. I just want to say the first thing that should come out of our mouths when talking about what Lamont Roach did was he performed insanely well. And I just want to make sure that is the defining feature of how we talk about his performance. Now, that aside, you're asking a pretty big question. I saw a tweet from Bill Simmons, BC, on Sunday.
Oh, that notable boxing fan, Bill Simmons. Yes, go for it.
Yes. Well, fair enough. He's a casual combat sports fan. I mean,
he has been to a million fights. He gets to a certain degree. Yep.
To Bill's credit, back when ESPN was doing stuff called like Page 2, he was going to the Mohegan Sun to see UFC events. Like, this is a guy who, I'm not going to call him a hardcore fan, and I don't really care for, like, I don't understand why he has cousin Sal on all the time, who has nothing interesting to say ever once in his life. But Putting that aside for
I didn't see this rivalry coming, but keep going.
No.
Okay.
I don't hate him, but it's like every time I tune in, I'm like, why is this person just talking? Just stop. Anyway, he had a tweet that he had to know was incorrect, but it doesn't really matter, which is that he says, in talking about the round 9 knockdown, that this was a travesty, this was ridiculous, but boxing is not really regulated so that there will be no penalty. Now, he knows that's not true. He's had any number of discussions with other boxers, with Dana White, about the UFC. He knows that relevant athletic commissions are the ones that are in charge. But the casual person's opinion, even somebody who might know better like Bill, nevertheless takes you to a position where it doesn't really necessarily matter that the commission actually is the one in charge. I mean, there is some relevancy and importance there, but this is the crucial detail, BC, that it just looks like nobody is in charge. It looked like Saturday, no one was really in charge except for maybe Tank Davis of his own choosing to do almost, not quite, whatever he wanted, because in taking the knee, not only should that have been ruled potentially a knockdown, and referee Steve Willis began physically gesturing, counting with his fingers, then all of a sudden inexplicably stops. They could have actually disqualified him for Tank Davis for putting his head out the ropes, being wiped down by Calvin Ford to get something out of his eyes, and then returning to action. Or they could have taken 2 points for that if they had wanted to. That was all on the table. But instead, none of that happened. And in fact, what happened was the exact opposite, as if nothing had happened. That is the reality of what went on here. We'll talk about a tweet from Turkey, Al Sheikh, later in the show, BC, where he had some interesting things to say about this broadcast. But I want to really make a point about this. A lot of what the American boxing community is trying to do right now, which I fully support, is bring big fighters, big fights, and keep them here in the United States, right? To keep the markets alive, to show what can be done when you have an enthusiastic and native boxing audience here in the States, to really sort of showcase what it means to have an American boxing, both a side as well as a feature event. But in the end, when we talked last week about Turkey, going up and talking to Shiraz about the scores and how that was, not necessarily a good look, but hey, he's the guy kind of in charge. What do you really expect? I'm not suggesting to you that the regulatory scheme that we saw in place on Saturday is identical to that, BC. What I'm saying is a casual fan, which is the biggest audience that combat sports has, they can't tell the difference.
Right.
There was really no difference between the kind of thing that you saw in Saudi where Turkey can kind of have his way, and then basically, what do you want to call it? Inept, lost his fastball, whatever, with Steve Willis, where this goes down. We all saw the scorecards, 115, 113, 2, 114, 114s. And I saw what people said. Well, if he had taken a point, maybe if they had taken a point, maybe Davis would have approached this fight afterwards a little bit differently. And BC, that is true. I have no way of knowing if he had taken a point, how that would have been, how Davis would have responded to it. But the best stretch of the fight that Lamont Peterson had was basically during that portion and then a little bit later as well. Like
Roach.
He was on fire from round 7 afterward, not from rounds 1 to round 6. It is very hard for me to believe that there would have been some kind of amazing Tank comeback, at least on that particular night, given everything that we saw, BC. So how do I wrap this all up? Let's just state it as plainly as possible. The rightful winner of that bout should be Lamont Peterson. Lamont Peterson was the better pure boxer, landed more on Tank Davis than anyone else has to this point, and was fucking robbed by an officiating crew that either wasn't up to the job or certainly after the fact, even despite multiple entreaties from the press, like Dan Rafael and other ones, who don't even have the goddamn decency to explain what happened from a regulatory standpoint on their end. A shameful night for boxing, even if it was a great night for Lamont Roach.
Yes, thank you for you. You were calling him Peterson for a while. I get the Washington connection.
Oh, sorry about that. Yes, I apologize. There's a lot of Lamonts here. Yeah.
If anyone didn't see it, a very slow tactical fight for the first half. We didn't really learn a lot. You get Tank, who's always a slow starter, but I think the key part of this was Lamont Roach didn't do what everybody else does, which is try to, go crazy and win as many rounds until Tank makes that adjustment and knocks them out. He forced Tank, who loves being the counterpuncher, to take the lead. So it was an interesting but slow chess match. When we fast forward all the way to round 9, of course, Tank, after a couple punches from Roach, not directly, you know what I mean? There was a pause. He got hit with a jab, and then he turns and takes a knee. And anywhere, I believe in any state commission, automatically you get a standing 8 count. You take a knee voluntarily. Let's not forget, by the way, the only time legally that Floyd Mayweather was knocked down in his entire career, not counting the one against Zab Judah that should have been that they missed, was when he broke his hand against Carlos Hernandez and turned away and went down to one knee. Should have been a 10-8. If it had been, as Luke said, it would have been a majority decision win for Lamont Roach. So right there, then and there, you've got a major issue. I don't have a major issue with the actual scoring of the fight. I do want to say that. In real time, while calling the fight, which isn't always easy to score it as focused as you would be if you weren't, I felt 8-4 or 9-3 in terms of rounds in favor of Roach was what my eyes saw. But I'm saying that telling you that there's like 4 or 5 rounds in the first half of that fight where the output is so low from either fighter that it is really hard to confidently say Roach won this fight. I think most people had it around a draw or 7-5 either way. And really, I don't think it's crazy that you could have scored it 7-5 for Tank because some of those rounds were close. And even that round 9, after that failed knockdown fiasco, that was the best round of the fight. And honestly, one of the best rounds of the year because they traded in the center of the ring. And I actually thought that Tank landed in totality the bigger shots. So I slightly edged him that round, even though he did get briefly wobbled by a Roach shot. But the whole point was 2 or 3 judges had it 10-9 Tank. If that knockdown would have been called, it would automatically been 10-8 Roach. So there you go. Now to clean up some of the regulatory stuff here, and Dan Rafael of Fight Freaks Unite did a lot of reporting yesterday on this and went on his own podcast and talked about it. And according to Dan, he communicated with people that were in the production truck for PBC. And under the New York State Athletic Commission rules, they do have instant replay, but they have a tight window where they can use it. So according to Dan, he talked to the production people in the truck. They fed the replay in real time, in enough time. But also according to Rafael, the replay official on site is claiming that they didn't get the clean feed quick enough and the window passed for the actual instant replay to take place. So in totality here, Luke, I don't know who's right or wrong on the replay getting there in time, but this is a major, major dropping of the ball from the New York State Athletic Commission. First and foremost, Steve Willis, a guy that a lot of us love and respect in some ways because he's smooth in there. He's almost dancing the way he moves around. His eyes are flying all over the place. This was a dropped call. This was absolutely a dropped call, and something I didn't even realize in real time while calling it. He did. You can see it on the replay, start administering the count, and then his voice was picked up on the broadcast due to being mic'd, saying, Tank, you can't do that because it's going to look like a knockdown. No, it is a knockdown. So this is rough. This is really rough. If we can show a tweet from Dan Rafael, Long Island Luke, who is certainly one of the longest reigning and respected journalists in this game, Dan straight up calling it fuckery and, quote, literally the worst call I've seen in my entire life. So you're talking about a legitimate controversy here. Luke, how do you feel like, having watched it a second time, what's the window of a fair scorecard in your eyes?
I could do 115 in either direction. I think that's okay. I think start getting to 116 territory, that seems a little wide, although I suppose there's probably a case, but that seems more edge case. I mean, it was a close fight, and it wasn't a fight that had a ton of really, truly punctuated moments. And so, you know, it's not that I mind. You notice I'm not necessarily railing on the scorecard of 115, 113 for Gervonta Davis. I don't think that is insane by any stretch of the imagination. It's just that it ended up being a 115, 113, then the 2 114s. And so mathematically, if the point had been deducted, we've been over it a million times. Obviously, it would have gone to Roach. But like, you know, I don't mind scoring it that way. It's just, dude, you know, you go back to the Teddy Atlas quote, you know, what is it? 36 minutes to make life fair. When you're talking about these 12-round bouts,
right?
This is something Lamont Roach, excuse me, has been looking for quite some time. He did everything that was asked of him, and it didn't end in disaster, but it didn't end the way that it was supposed to under the fairest of circumstances. And I really don't know what the choice is for fighters about this one. You know, I've made a big deal about fighter pay for a long time, but it's not really as relevant in boxing for obviously, you know, a bunch of reasons. But if there is one common denominator the boxers and the MMA fighters have is, man, they are at the mercy of just absolutely. We talk about our leadership, our political leadership in this country being a gerontocracy. But, dude, that's the same thing happening in our officiating world. Look at how old these boxing referees are. Look at how old these judges are. Look at how old the commissioners are. And look at me saying it. If I'm saying it, there's a huge problem. And here's how bad it is in boxing, BC. It's not even as bad in MMA, despite the fact that the commissions are obviously sanctioning both sports. You know, we talked about the Jason Herzog controversy. Look at the difference between what Jason Herzog is and what he's done since that era versus Steve Willis, who didn't speak to the press, has apparently no desire to speak to the press. The commission won't make him speak to the press. And so here we are. It's like, dude, we are in desperate, and I do mean desperate need of adults with bold vision in this sport, both boxing and MMA combat sports more broadly, taking on a position where they recognize the problems that we face now in some ways might be intractable, but the effort we are putting into making them better seems non-existent, whether it's eye pokes in MMA or whether it is referees in this particular case who watch a fighter take a knee, stick his head outside the ring, get wiped down, and then return. He starts a count physically. You can see him do it on the broadcast and then stop. And we're just supposed to say this is a normally functioning sport. This is a fucking disaster sport. Yeah. This is a disaster sport. You are ruining and fucking up the lives of the people who are putting their lives on the line for entertainment. It's unethical. It's unfucking believable. And yet it is the reality we have. Something, goddamn something, needs to be done to protect people like Roach and more broadly, just consumer interest if they want to keep this thing afloat.
Now, we're going to get more into Gervonta's sort of shortcomings on this night in topic number 2. But if you hadn't heard his excuse when I asked him in the ring afterwards in terms of like what happened, why did you take that knee, was that he had his braids done a couple days ago and that there was grease put in there and the grease was dripping down and blinding him in the eye. Now, like we have seen the famous Cassius Clay versus Sonny Liston, part 1, where Muhammad Ali, accused Clay of putting illegal substances on his gloves and he was blinded, but he fought through it because there's no timeouts in boxing. So it really is a rough situation that doesn't make Tank look good. And oh, by the way, Tank's proposed hairstylist, if this is the person who did it, came out on social media and killed him and was like, I did his hair on Wednesday. There's no chance that could have still been an issue on Saturday. Although, Luke, you may remember that Amanda Serrano did have a Puerto Rico homecoming fight with Jake Paul's MVP Promotions. I think it was last year, and unfortunately had to pull out the day of that fight because something similar happened where she got her hair done and it messed with her vision. So I guess it is possible that could be a thing. But the whole handling of it was an absolute debacle by the New York State Athletic Commission. And you're right. The fact that officials are not readily made available in most cases for comment or interviewing does not help the situation. It also, even though PBC is getting a lot of counterfire blame here, it's not their fault, but it looks like it is because Tank escapes a fight where he was, let's be honest, a little bit flat, not himself, largely uninterested. I said, we'll get into more of the Tank side. So, Luke, let's close out the Lamont Roach side. Everything he said he did in this fight. Luke, I got laughed at in the production meetings talking up the amateur experience between them, the familiarity, the fact that Roach was not afraid of Tank. He showed that in just about every way. He survived those middle rounds where Tank was going hard to the body and walking him down. So I got to ask you, Luke, what do you think Roach ultimately accomplished against Tank that pretty much every other opponent has been unable to make it this close? Obviously, the Barrios fight was close. It was a size difference, but Tank overwhelmed him. The Pitbull Cruz fight was close, but Tank hurt his hand in here. I'm not seeing the same excuses here. A guy who knew him well kind of outdid him here. How did he do it in your eyes?
I don't think he kind of outdid him. I think he did outdo him. I mean, again, it's, some of the scoring can be close, but just watching it again, I watched it 2 more times this morning from front to back, and I couldn't believe what I was looking at. I mean, dude, Understand what the fucking media slander was about Lamont Roach coming into this fight. Number one, that he was cherry picked, which I don't think is necessarily unfair. I think that Davis was probably looking for a tough but manageable fight and thought he could get that in Roach, and he got much more than he bargained for. But aside from that, the point that they made was not an unfair point beyond that, namely, well, Roach is a 130 guy coming up to 135. He lost to Jamel Herring. Yeah, he's got a win over Hector Garcia. That's nice, but this is somebody that Tank should just blow away. And then you talk to Lamont Roach. You talk to him. I talked to him ahead of this fight, and he said all the right things, which was, I know this guy. I know myself. I grew up from those bad experiences with Jamel Herring. I've rounded the corner. This is totally different. We know who he is. We know how to fight him. Dude, he stood in front of Tank Davis, took the best punches that Tank could give him for 36 minutes, and fired back almost the entire time. First 6 rounds a little slow, but from round 7 on, BC, he was in there trading with the guy, never got dropped, wobbled Tank Davis as the guy coming up in weight, catch and shoot, was so crafty, slipped on the 2 and landed his own. That lead left hook of his is a dynamic weapon. You saw him chopping to the body, chopping upstairs. With that, dude, he stood in there and gave Gervonta Davis basically in that space, not in terms of like an overwhelming show of force, but in terms of what he said he was going to do, BC, overall boxing skill. And in overall boxing skill, he stood in there under that consideration and gave Tank everything he could handle and then some. How many people have numerically outscored Tank Davis in that way, not for power shots, but overall volume in the way that Lamont has? Nobody. And then to go in there and stand right in the line of fire. And BC, I even tweeted it before the show. There's several of those punches where he's kind of catching and rolling with, but they're landing at the same time. This is fucking Tank Davis, man. This guy just stretches people when he lands. And remember, I'm going to say it again, coming up from a lower weight class, just taking, catching, and shooting the whole time. Dude, I understand that a lot of people didn't know who Lamont was. BC, I'm not even, I told you, did I not text you this? Tell the audience the truth. After I got my stupid ass pedicure, I'm sitting there waiting for my daughter to get finished up, and the guy next to me who's sitting there is playing your post-fight interview on the phone. Then, I didn't tell you this part, I go across the street to where there's like this food hall, and the guys behind the grill are talking about Lamont Roach. Dude, nobody knew who he was, and now they do, and that's a great thing. But you asked what he did. Dude, he arrived. That's what he did. He arrived. He said he was going to do, and he did everything that he promised. He can't control the judging, so that part's out of his hands. But he proved he is a craftsman, he is a veteran, and he deserves to be taken as seriously as anybody else in that division.
Yeah, a huge coming out party. And a reminder that they were, the last time they fought as amateurs when they were age 15 and 16 in 2011, they were number 1 and 2 in the nation in their weight class. So Roach turned pro with a legitimate reputation, but to be fair, it took him time. It wasn't just the loss to Jamel Herring in 2019 where he just wasn't quite ready for prime time. He bounced from promoters, from Golden Boy, eventually to PBC. And then look, he had to wait out his title shot against Hector Garcia for Hector to fight Tank, and Hector delayed it and got injured. Like, there was a long time for him to get this opportunity to finally prove himself. And I've got to say, he was not, even though we knew he was slightly taller and slightly longer than Tank coming in, he was not the smaller man, despite moving up in weight. I know it's one division, 5 pounds. He looked like a legit-ass 135-pounder, a tough one, with a chin, with defense, with counter shots. I know it was largely a low-output fight, save for those pockets of rounds where they did trade. But he passed the test literally every way he could. And there was a tweet out there that I didn't love from Tank where he said, they took the fight from me and made it a draw because I did that bullshit knee, but I landed the most punches in the fight, which he didn't. And he didn't even hit me with a punch when I took the knee. Also not true. It did come after a couple shots. And oh, by the way, that tweet from Gervonta did get community noted, and they showed the CompuBox stats on there. But let's play an interesting piece of sound from the presser where Roach is talking about what Tank said to him in round 12.
Y'all know something funny? When we was talking in like the 12th round, I think the 12th or 11th, we was talking shit, right? But he like, you ain't gonna win. I said, shit, why not? What you talking about? He like, they ain't gonna give it to you. I was like, oh, is that right? So, you know, that's how boxing work. It's sad to say, you know, that's how boxing work. I'm not like totally upset. I figured with a superstar, you won't get too much on paper. But shit, I damn sure thought I had it. Especially when they announced the score for him. I was like, oh, they gonna give me a split decision win. I was like, oh yeah. I was like, oh shit, here it goes. But as soon as I heard that 114, I was just like, damn, all right, it's over with.
So, Luke, Tank telling him they're going to rob you. They're not going to give it to you. They're going to give me a split decision was interesting.
Hold on. I got an updated tweet 20 minutes ago from Lamont Roach, 20 minutes ago. So Gervonta tweets, yes, 42 minutes ago, say no more. I'm pushing for the rematch. Lamont just quote tweeted and goes, F you mean pushing, N-word. My contract already signed and set for the immediate rematch because you put that in there just in case you lost. Only reason we don't fight is because you're scared.
Okay. So that is good because Keith Idek of Uncrowned reported that Tank did have a rematch clause. It is contractually there. But there was this weird sound afterwards from Tank that didn't make a lot of sense. Can we hear it quickly here, Long Out?
Beat him up a little bit, then press the issue.
Okay, one more here, and I think we're good.
Tank, I just wanted to ask earlier, you said, you know, hopefully you can get the rematch with Lamont next, but everybody looks at you as the face of boxing and as somebody who calls the shots. Do you want that rematch next? And if so, how likely it is that we're to see that fight happen again this year?
I'm not sure, bro. I'm definitely not sure. But hopefully we can get it before, it probably won't be this year.
Is that the one you want next?
It's definitely the one I want next, but it's not gonna be next.
What is?
You might see it in a minute. Definitely might see it in a minute.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, give it up one more time for the WBA live.
Now, Luke, he would elaborate on that in another interview where he claimed that there was an opponent ready in the arena that came into his locker room that he was going to announce had he won. The only people I saw that fit that description, either ringside or on social media, that were there were Shakur Stevenson, Isak Pitbull Cruz, and Jake Paul. So it seems like it was probably going to be one of those three, if you could even sanction some kind of weird Gervonta Jake Paul rematch, match. I don't even know. But I'm happy, though, that it does seem we're angling toward a rematch because Roach deserves that. And I did see, I think is it the WBA came out and said they're more than likely going to order a rematch. So would you agree with me that this has to be next? And I want to know, do you think this is because of the controversy and the performance from Roach? Do you think this will be a big deal, this rematch?
I think the rematch will be bigger than the first one. I do think that. I mean, there's simply no question that people were caught a little. Dude, even us, we have a high opinion of Lamont Roach, and even us were like, wow, he really. I thought for sure if he was going to duel like that with Tank, he was going to get some licks and give some, but that eventually he might get clipped at a bare minimum. And even that didn't happen. Like, crazy to think about. So I think the rematch will be bigger. And for that reason, there's a good chance of it being made. But like, if Shakur comes calling, I don't know if that will take precedence or not. And you mentioned it. I mean, I don't even know what to say about like Jake Paul being there. Is it even relevant? Is this a thing? I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I don't even know what to say about that. But the point I'm trying to make is there could be any number of other fights that get made that are at least in theory bigger. And for that reason, you just always have to follow the money in boxing. But I think what Lamont has on his side is him and I sent a bunch of tweets in the chat.
He has them ready if you want.
He's going back and forth. He's going back and forth with Tank. Here's the Dan Canobio one. Saying no more, I'm pushing for the rematch. BC saying he wants the rematch at the end of May. I'd be okay with that if that's what they want to do, like turn around on it real quickly.
Heck yeah.
And then I don't understand this one. If you've got it, word around the block, y'all favorite fighter, he's talking about Tank here, is fitting to be 30-1, not 30-0-1. 2 times 2 division champ. Is he suggesting he's got word from the commission that they might change the result of that fight?
It seems like that. In the history of people appealing and getting things changed in boxing isn't great, but this is such an egregious situation. Again, I mentioned what Dan Rayfield reported about the the dropping of the ball in terms of the timing of the window of when replay is accepted there. I feel like if they had seen it in real time, and I think it was referee Ricky Gonzalez, Dan said, who was the replay official, very respected guy. There's no reason that they would not have changed that to a knockdown. So I don't know rules wise, Luke, if they can retroactively do that. Either way, this man deserves the rematch, meaning Lamont Roach. He deserves the big time money for this performance. And I'd almost tell him, leave that 130-pound title you own behind. I love him here at lightweight. This physical size, this confidence. You already had Shakur Stevenson saying he'd love to fight him too. So interesting stuff, Luke. But let's transition to topic number 2. A lot of Tank trepidation out there about what was really going on in the buildup to this fight, the performance of this fight, the aftermath. So, Luke, yes, the true story of this fight surrounds 2 things: the controversy and the overachieving, the coming out party of Lamont Roach. But it is hard not to overlook some of the bizarre behavior from Davis. Okay, him talking about retirement like crazy in therapy, that's not bizarre, but I think that played into this. Then you have that sort of weird mock outrage that Tank had in the ring after the decision was won. He had like a smile on his face, but he kind of kneeled in the corner and acted like he was really upset. Then he gives me the very odd excuse about the grease in his hair that's already been auto-tuned into like a song, by the way, on the internet. He had an overall lack of urgency. So when you consider all this, Luke, including him arguing with his corner aggressively and yelling at Calvin Ford and who is it? Barry
Hunter,
who took over as main trainer for this fight. Here's a very important question, because boxing, you only fight 2 times a year in most cases. So you are only as good as your last performance. Was this one off night for Tank Davis, or is this a sign that the hunger is temporarily gone, or that he might be spiraling here in terms of the direction of his career in the wrong direction after this performance?
There is simply no question his competitive fire has diminished. There's no question in my mind. I don't know how you can't look at his attitude from the beginning of this announcement for this fight, the press tour all week, everything. It just seemed to me he's got his mind in other places. Now, we have to understand something. That doesn't mean he did not train hard. And in fact, if you'll note, he did not have a hard time going 12 rounds. And also, I think the way in which Lamont Roach fought him created, as you indicated, BC, somebody like Tank wants to be the counterfighter, and Lamont wasn't really obliging that very often, or at least certainly not as much down the stretch, and was making him go and then was getting countered. And, so it was a big problem. But I just want to point out something here. We said from the moment that this fight was announced and they did that press event, BC, you and I watched it, we were like, man, Tank just seems like he's in another world. I cannot declare to you at the present moment that he is done. And anybody who can knows much more than me, or simply is willing to just say things that they just don't know to be true. It is very possible, BC, that another thing you have to consider is he does have, Tank Davis, a chummy relationship with a bunch of DC boxers. Again, the guy who was his fucking cornerman this time is perhaps the chief, and Barry Hunter, the chief coach in this area for that kind of a thing. And so it wasn't a heated rival like he had in Ryan Garcia. In fact, BC, I went back and I watched some of the press events from the Ryan Garcia fight. Remember when Ryan was like, it's not about money. That's what you don't get. And then Tank's pulling out money. He's like, yes, this is all that it's about, you idiot. And he's like chucking money at him. Remember? Like, there was a certain kind of competitive fire that was pulled out of him. And I do think that ultimately elevated his performance on that night. I know there's weight stuff and everything else, but I'm saying I do think that played a role. But Lamont never gave him any of that, and Tank never tried to get any of that out of him. I mean, there's a little bit of this and that, but there was none of it. But just between that, the way in which Roach fought, and then the bigger issues that a guy like Tank has identified. Remember, prior to this fight, and then there were some other ones too, but more recently, I should say, in Tank's life, the guy went to jail. And he went to jail for like a big thing that he fucked up on really bad. It was a hit and run and left people there at the scene of an accident. Like, this is pretty bad shit. And he went to jail for it. And he came out, it seems to me, something of a different person. And it seems, BC, maybe even a better overall person. Yeah. But I've seen better overall people become worse boxers because they're healing. things that had tripped them up and angered them and frustrated them earlier in life simply no longer does. By the way, he also has more money than he could probably ever need if he, spends his money wisely. So BC, all of this is to say, there's simply no doubt this is not peak Tank in terms of his competitive fire, ambition, and focus. That isn't to say he couldn't pull it out of him in a rematch. That isn't to say he couldn't win a rematch. And it's not here to say that a different person who would be squawking in his face couldn't pull out the monster once more. But he wasn't there on Saturday at the Barclays, and he should have paid for it with a loss.
I agree with you. I agree with you completely. And it's not that this doesn't happen. Great fighters have had off nights, bad camps, stretches in their life where they weren't as focused, whether there's outside distractions or partying or whatever. I don't know the case, right? We don't see a lot of Tank outside of his fights. You know what I'm saying? So it's tough to say, but there were some issues in there. It seemed beyond just Roach knew him well, applied the right element of pressure, showed a great chin. I mean, when he was giving me that answer, it was like Bizarro world. Even in his even when he was hearing the boos from the crowd and sort of getting angry and challenging them and being like, "Why are you guys booing? This is a legitimate thing." It's like, I'm not saying it's not a legitimate thing that hair grease could have gotten to his eye, but he was so nonchalant, almost laughing about it. There didn't seem a legit amount of A, urgency in the fight, and B, lament that this even happened, right? Like lament that there was a draw on his record. Now it could just be he was kind of half embarrassed in the moment. Who knows? It was interesting. Let's play sound from Tank at the post-fight presser where he does show some humility about why this result didn't go his way and further talks about Hairgate.
What was going through your mind when you heard the decision?
Nobody like a draw, from a guy that get knockouts and things like that, but it's cool. I feel like if we fight again, I could do more, and I should have did more. I was lost in I lost track in the rounds. That's why we need what is it called? Yeah, man. I didn't know what round it was. Facts.
Tank, Eric Blum from DailyMail.com. First off, your coach just said, can you confirm, did you get your hair done 2 days before the fight?
Yeah. I ran water over it today, but I must ain't do it enough.
Can you describe what the feeling was like in the ring? And was it to get the towel out, to get the burn out of your eyes, or what was going on? And
I didn't want to get caught. I didn't want to get caught while my eyes was burning. And, you can get knocked out like that. So I'd rather take the knee than, But I didn't really know that you can, get disqualified for all that. Or, when you start counting, I'm like, what the hell? But I don't know. It's cool.
Do you want that rematch next? And if so, how likely it is that we're to see that fight happen again this year?
I'm not sure, bro. I'm definitely not sure. But hopefully we could get it before... Nah, it probably won't be this year.
Is that the one you want next?
It's definitely the one I want next, but it's not going to be next.
What is?
You might see it in a minute. You definitely might see it in a minute.
Okay, the ending of that was a repeat of what we had heard earlier, but Tank would go on to later say, when asked if this changes his retirement plans, he said it does. He now wants to fight 4 times this year, so who knows if that is, if he'll get there, if that's real. But Luke, you did hear him say he lost track of the rounds. He didn't know the rules about the knee, which is kind of weird and interesting. I get. By
the way,
he didn't want
MMA fighters and boxers appear to not know the rules of their own sport. I'm not even doing a bit. Like, how many weeks do we go over this? And they're like, no one seems to know the rules.
If you could try to get in the head of referee Steve Willis, do you think this is tied into some of the complaints we have in MMA refereeing where they don't want to be the story? So they try so hard not to take away a point or do something where they have a hand in the outcome. But in this case, by not taking control and not having a hand in the outcome, you alter the outcome. Is that how you sort of look at what Steve Willis did?
I just think Steve Willis is old, and I think he got caught in a super unenviable situation, a weird one, and just refused to take control. Just refused to take control and let the other guys take control. And I think as a consequence, this is where we are. Like, these guys don't, to your point, they simply don't want to have any kind of fingerprint. And now it's gotten to the point where we can't even tell if they're there, right? They're borderline invisible at this point. And by the way, obviously not calling the knock or the knee down, or even warning about anything in any kind of formal way, and the whole all of that in round 9 is bad. It wasn't like he had a good refereeing performance outside of that, BC. He was slow to break up some clinches and had a hard time doing it. And then there was other times, BC, he would like pull them apart and then talk to one of them, wouldn't stop the clock, and they would talk. I counted, almost one of them went for 15 seconds. So several of them went for 10. And the time is just ticking by. And I'm like, dude, he sucked. He was really, really bad on Saturday night. It's hard for me to believe there is nobody in their late 20s, early 30s in New York State who can do that job effectively, because it seems to me like they are in desperate need of some turnover.
Well, if Roach would have won, would be a new champion. You've already got star-studded group at this division with Tank with a belt, Lomachenko, Shakur Stevenson, Keyshawn Davis. Do you reorder those at all, Luke, in terms like does Tank deserve to drop out of the pound for pound top 10 for this? I mean, it was a draw in the end, controversially enough. Does this change anything when you look at the hierarchy at lightweight? And what I mean by that is, I was always of the belief that if Shakur and Tank met, I would favor Shakur, even with the power difference between them. And people would always laugh at me when I say that. I almost feel like we saw some limitations in Tank's adjustment ability here that we just haven't seen before. This was the first flat fight he'd had since the Maymac co-main event in 2017, when he missed weight against Francisco Fonseca and kind of got booed the whole fight until he finally knocked him out late. Does this change much in how you look at Tank's stock?
Yes, it does. I remember when Spence beat Crawford beat Spence. And I think the month after that, BC, I got the opportunity to call. By the way, Gary Antoine Russell, I got to call one of his fights at the MGM here in Oxon Hill, Maryland, just outside the city. And Breadman, by the way, who was also there cornering Julian Williams, J-Rock. And he said to me something off air. We were talking about, like, what does this do to Spence's pound for pound ranking? And his point was, dude, you can't get throttled like that and then claim to be a pound for pound guy. Now, the argument, of course, was that Bud is also a pound for pound guy, so it wasn't like you were losing to a scrub. But his point was, you simply cannot get dominated like that and then hold your pound for pound positioning. Now, BC, that's not the situation here. It's not like Lamont dominated Tank. Far from it. That's not my point. And nobody would suggest something like that. However, like, again, I'm going to say it. Roach, prior to Saturday, not on anyone's pound for pound list. And on top of that, a 130 guy coming up. If you're a pound for pound guy, should you be going to draws against guys that you handpicked from lower weight classes? There's a strong argument that there should be a very stiff penalty in the rankings for a performance like that.
But if Tank comes out and knocks him out in the rematch and does what the odds makers thought he would, that could change that. Fickle. It's fickle, this sport.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm not saying he never belongs on it now or ever again. We're taking a snapshot in time. He goes out there in the rematch in May. BC stretches him. Okay, different conversation that we're having. But at the present moment in time, he turned in a real dud, and he's supposed to be a top pound for pound guy. There should be a penalty for that. Yes.
All right. Well, Luke, that's a good time. Good time to look at the future of the sport. Also, a good time right now to remember one thing. Where tequila's story truly began. Yes, in 1795, Cuervo invented tequila. And since then, Cuervo has stayed true to its roots. The same family, the same land, the same passion. 230 years later, we are still here in every pour, in every margarita, and every celebration. So enjoy the tequila that started it all. It's Cuervo, the tequila that invented tequila. Proximo, Cuervo.com. Please drink responsibly. Always a shout out to our partners over there at Cuervo.
Oh, yeah.
Luke, let's quickly hit the big notes on the PBC on Prime undercard. Then we'll get into the UFC Apex over the weekend. Gary Antoine Russell, who had knocked out all 17 opponents heading into his title shot last year for the interim belt against Alberto Puello. He would lose a split decision and say afterwards, I'm never going to leave it in the ring again. He said he had a chip on his shoulder, and he went in there against world title holder Jose Valenzuela, who called him nothing special this week. Russell said, I took that shit personally. What did he do? He delivered a near shutout over 12 rounds to capture a world title at 140 pounds, honor his late father, Gary Russell Sr. Of course, he had his brother, Gary Russell Jr., former featherweight champion, in his corner. So Luke, Russell attempted just shy of 1,000 punches over 12 rounds. He kept up a brutal pace, and he beat Valenzuela, who is a very good fighter, in just about every category. What did this performance say in your eyes about where Gary Antoine Russell belongs in the 140-pound hierarchy?
Dude, this is the most impressive performance I've seen from him. I mean, you can say the Victor Postol fight. You can even say the Kent Cruz fight, which is the one that went in a round. But, like, I freaking love this performance from Russell. I couldn't believe how good it was. I thought Rayo was going to give him a tough time. I mean, understand something. Rayo was coming into this fight. Jose Valenzuela, with the stoppage win in the, round 6 over Chris Colbert, and then the Isaac Cruz performance. And remember, Isaac Cruz was kind of bumping himself up in everyone's eyes in terms of what he was doing, and then Rayo outboxed him, and everyone's like, oh, wow, I guess Rayo is simply a lot better than we ever realized. And then Gary Antoine Russell, goes in there, BC, and kind of abused him, to be perfectly honest, especially down the stretch. He was landing multi-punch combinations. Rayo simply couldn't do anything to get out of the way of the onslaught. He got pushed back into the ropes over and over again. He got drilled to the body, combinations upstairs. He just really was struggling to find a place, I'm not going to say to hide, but to be comfortable in there. And then secondly, on top of it, BC, he was just, he was out of ideas. Yeah. I think by round 9 or 10, he just looked like, I am just trying to get through this. That's what it looked like to me. Russell fought with verve. He fought with personality. He fought with a ton of offensive mindedness. Like, he had a high work rate and everything else. And you guys talked about it on the broadcast that he fought with a bit of a chip on his shoulder coming off that Puello split decision loss. BC, it clearly lit a fire under him. And by the way, also I should say something too. I don't want to keep going back to it, but I do think it is relevant. They lost their patriarch some years ago at this point, and Gary Russell Jr. has kind of filled in, and I think he's done a marvelous job. Please don't misunderstand me, but it looked like it might have taken some time for Gary Antoine Russell to kind of settle into all of the new power dynamics at the gym and what it means for his training, what it means for the fights, what it means for his development and everything else. Dude, he looked like, if you just take away the Puello fight and you pick up off the Kent Cruz fight, it looked to me like, you know, the line growth is like this on the graph. It's just an unbelievable leveling up from him. This was Rayo at arguably, BC, his hottest. Yeah. This was Valenzuela at arguably the best that he has been, and Russell mowed him down. I was so impressed by him. I was expecting, we talked about it a little bit on Friday. Hey, this is kind of one going on under the radar, because I thought it was going to be back and forth.
Dude, it was a pick'em on the cards. It was an actual pick'em.
Sorry, last thing on this, BC, I apologize. You're right, it was a pick'em. Rayo couldn't get Russell off of him. Russell was just constantly battering him. And you could see there were times Rayo would bite and then throw and then kind of like, I'm going to stand my ground. And then he would just get overwhelmed right afterwards. Man, this was the best performance I've seen from Russell, a deserving one for claiming a world title. I take my hat off to him. Fantastic by him.
He told us in the fighter meetings, I'm going to destroy him in every possible way. And you hear that and you're like, okay, great. Let's see what happens. Dude, he even took Rayo's best shots and never sold them, just kept coming forward and pushing and pushing. It was almost virtuoso level. And I loved the coaching in the corner from his older brother, Gary. And if you don't know, their late father, Gary Russell Sr., named all 6 boys Gary Russell with different middle names, sort of a George Foreman thing, but breakout performance. No longer Gary Russell Jr.'s little brother in any way. And you consider he's got that streak of 17 consecutive knockouts against guys he beat. Didn't get a knockout here, but dominated him. I think this was a good enough performance that he now looks like the class of this division. Like literally looks like he could beat every other champion, including Teofimo. He looked that good as a southpaw, mixing the boxing with the power. We also saw another title fight in this division on the undercard, also between southpaws, when Alberto Puello and Sandor Martin, who a lot of us kind of secretly thought could put out a stinker, they surprisingly had an aggressive, somewhat of an action fight. But Luke, a split decision loss for Sandor Martin, where I thought he had done enough. The same outcome he had against Teofimo in that close fight. I felt for him. Were you leaning either way in this one after the fight?
Well, what? No, yes. I mean, it was close. It was close. I thought Martin won. Martin won, but the fight was not great. And it was close. And whenever it's close, you know the rule. Whenever it's close in combat sports, it's just a coin flip at that point. So yes, I did not. I mean, again, Puello got the split decision against Russell previously, and then he kind of edges one here too. But I didn't think it was some kind of. I saw some people being like, "This was a travesty." I didn't think it was a travesty. No.
Yeah, and you can have a unification fight rematch now with Russell and Puello. Also unbeaten 154-pounder, the 24-year-old Yoenis Tejas of Cuba. Look great against J-Rock. He's 10-0, Luke. He would get the decision here. I feel like he's ready for a title shot like right now. Like this kid is legit looking to me. Are you going to talk me off the ledge at all, or were you impressed?
What did you think of J-Rock?
Didn't throw enough punches, gave a veteran performance, tried to expose the kid, couldn't. It's getting time. He's 34 years old. He's a gatekeeper now, but I love the guy. I love Breadman.
I thought J-Rock boxed as a crafty veteran. I thought, he kept himself safe as possible, tried to go where he could, tried to find his spots where he could, and it just wasn't enough. And ultimately he succumbed. So it's a nice performance by Tejas, but at the same time, I need to see a little bit more.
All right. A fun division there at 154. And if you missed it in Puerto Rico over the weekend on DAZN, Subriel Mateus did get his second consecutive victory after losing the title, stopping Gabriel Valenzuela in the 8th round. But one thing I forgot about, Luke, Subriel Mateus has knocked out every single opponent he's beaten. He's 22-2 now overall. So he's still a name here at 140. Should be some fun fights to get into.
Last thing on Gary Antoine Russell, 28 years old. Like Nasruddin Imavov, BC. He's in the prime. In all seriousness, he's 28 years old. Like, man, he's hitting his prime and looking every part of it. Yeah. Really excited about his future.
And there was also that robbery in England with that DQ with Paddy Donovan that the internet was going crazy over. Did you watch that?
I saw the highlights or whatever that was floating on social. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Luke. Shots fired across the boxing landscape for sure. And speaking of shots fired, how about a new segment here on Morning Kombat brought to you by who? By Cuervo. And oh, by the way, right now is a good time to enjoy that tequila, that invented tequila that we're talking about at Cuervo. Our new segment will look at some of the more aggressive takes of the week or moments right here. And we have a tweet for this week's Shots Fired, and it comes from Saudi Arabian boxing advisor Turki Al-Ashik, who was in New York over the weekend. I didn't see him at the Barclays Center. I'm not sure he was there, but he was watching the broadcast. He did fire some shots. Here's the tweet from Turkey. If you charge people $80 for the pay-per-view, you must give them a good card with good production. I mean, I worked on that show, Luke. I thought it was pretty damn good, but not meeting the expectations of your friend Turk 182 over there.
Okay, shots fired time. Listen, I appreciate what Turkey is saying, and I'm not saying he has no point here. For example, just on a small bit, when these guys walk out with the rappers who are just pantomiming, I realized that in the case of Gervonta, he had 2/3 of Dipset there. He had Jim Jones and he had Joel Santana. But the point was, it's just lame. It doesn't really work. There's a lot of things that could have been better on that broadcast in terms of the production element. But I will say this. The crowd was real. They did one of the highest gates ever at that facility, second highest of all time. There's a real market here. And in the case of Gervonta and Lamont, you obviously have two legit fighters, although to Turkey's credit, he's putting real fighters on in his neck of the woods as well. Listen, you've got two different models that are happening that are colliding, and both have their benefits, both have their downsides. I understand what Turkey is saying, but also, can we just say it real quickly, BC? You're charging $25 for pay-per-views because you're just willing to take an L. Other promoters simply cannot afford to do that. It's not realistic. Enjoy it while you can, but that ain't fair to the stateside who are putting on fights for an audience that has to show up.
And that was a great crowd. Chuck Mindenhall was there with his son. Mauro Ranallo's brother flew in for it to see Tank. It was kind of cool to see those guys there, but enjoyed that. Thank you. Over to Cuervo. Shots fired, baby. That's what we're talking about. Let's go on now to topic number 4. What went down on UFC Fight Night in the Apex, and a new flyweight main event after the injury to Brandon Royval did not change the stakes for Manel Kape, who went in there against red hot Asu Almabayev and would finish him within 3 rounds. So Luke, Kape certainly moves closer, if not right on the doorstep of a rematch with Alexandre Pantoja and that long-awaited flyweight title shot. So I want to know from you, what did we ultimately learn about Kape's 3rd round stoppage? And is it possible to separate the performance from another week of gratuitous eye pokes, which led directly to Kape's finish of Almabayev, who was trying to call timeout, trying to alert the referee, and ultimately Kape got away with it? I do have a quote I can read from Kape that MMAfighting.com transcribed, where he said after the fight, "That's not my job. I didn't see nothing. I think the referee should be more attentive. I've suffered so much stuff in the octagon, so I don't know. It was clear for what I've seen. It was good. He could see me good. If he was not able to fight, and if I think he was really stopping, he was complaining about something, I give him 3 seconds and I run back. I just didn't do anything, so I fight." End quote. A little bit confusing the grammar there, but is it possible to separate this performance and his climb up the ladder from eye pokes that weren't even caught by referee Mike Beltran and seemed to clearly affect the finish?
So I think 2 things in this particular case can be true at once. You asked me, did we learn anything from Kape? Not necessarily in the newer sense from me, given what he's been up to more recently. But it was confirmation that, like, clearly this guy deserves to fight for a title. And in fact, in the post-fight show, they had Kape talking to a remoted in Pantoja, right? So they were kind of just going back and forth on that one. It seems like the UFC was setting that up. I mean, it looked to me, he looked ready, BC. He looks to me like he's really fully kind of put things together here a little bit. He has fast feet, good reaction timing, great sprawl. You saw that a lot. Almabayev went 0 for 6 on takedowns, right? Had, I think, like 30 seconds of control time, which, hardly anything over the course of the time of that bout. Like this was a, and obviously like the pinpoint accuracy on his striking, and he was hunting down a literally fleeing Almabayev. And I want to point out something, like, at least in the eye pokes or the scrapes anyway that took place in the 3rd round, a lot of this came from Almabayev, who was fleeing contact. Now, I don't know if that falls under the exact guidelines of a fighter, avoiding the fight, but you're actually not allowed to do that. Of course, you can use defense. Of course, you can evade. But if you're just straight up running half the time, I do believe that certain jurisdictions and certain referees are allowed to, at a bare minimum, warn you about it and potentially even take points. You're not allowed to simply flee a fight. You can avoid, you can adjust, you can move around in certain ways, but fleeing is different. And a lot of this happened when he was reaching, again, in that 3rd round in particular, when he was reaching as he was fleeing. And I think that goes to the story. But, listen, Kape looks ready. This guy looks like he's ready for a flyweight title shot. He absolutely looks it. Whether he'll win or not remains to be seen. Again, this will be a rematch of the first fight that he had when he came to the UFC. Pantoja already won that one. But you get what I'm trying to point out. He just looked like, okay, we don't need to be wasting his time with anybody else. If it had been Royval, it's a different consideration, but we are where we are at this point. Give the guy a title shot. He's ready. At the same time, BC, even if I can look at how they matched up and I can say, well, one guy definitely looks a lot better at this weight class than the other one, and I definitely can say that. Almabayev is a good grappler, not a great one, and he's not much of a striker at all, and that really kind of fell apart for him here. None of that has anything to do with the reality that this guy's eyes got raked like fucking leaves in the middle of October. I mean, there's really no other way around it, dude. There's no fucking way. Dude, there has to be rules, and those rules have to be accompanied by a process. And the process here completely broke down. And I'm going to say it one more time. We went back to the old gloves 2 weekends in a fucking row. You have a main event where is it true that eye pokes played a meaningful role in the outcome, or at least how the outcome in this particular case was decided, matter-of-factly happened. And I'm going to say it again, BC, I don't know if the new gloves would have meaningfully made a difference in terms of eye injury. I actually went back to their announcements in April. The UFC did make some claims that they would do that, but those went untested. I don't know. What I do know is they went back to the old gloves, which we know verifiably do nothing to solve this problem. And I'm going to say it one more time. Look at the fucking shambolic state of combat sports, where in New York City, you've got a fucking boxer in the middle of a round taking a knee and then getting his face wiped off, and nothing happens. Let's go to the other side of the country with their sister sport in MMA, and let's have a guy get raked in the fucking eyeballs, and nobody in the regulatory apparatus in either case appears ready to do anything. The fighters, I don't think that there is any legal standing for what I'm about to say, BC, but there should be. There should be legal standing for the fighters to be able to sue these athletic commissions. And I mean that from every fucking fiber of my being, because they are getting railroaded week after week, month after month, year after year, and may I say, decade after decade, by these fucking incompetent do-nothings who are simply unwilling to meet the urgency of the moment with what has to happen on the regulatory side.
So there was an eye poke in round 2 that Beltran did see at least the result of when Almabayev was squinting and sort of covering up, and they did stop the action. There wasn't really a harsh warning. He treated it accidental, which it was. But our biggest point is that fighters are still allowed to fight with their fingers extended still. And I know it's part of the game. You're trying to catch kicks or what have you. But Luke, the sequence of 3 consecutive eye pokes as Almabayev was, like you said, running away, was so egregious. But I got to ask you this. These were flyweights. It's a faster product. Kape was, if I thought he was virtuoso against Bruno Silva last fight in his flowing state, ability to hit, not get hit, not even wind up on shots, just stick his arm out there and nail you. Is there any chance that Beltran, we could say he had a bad angle, that he couldn't see it? Because you kind of had to see the replay. And then when you did, you can see the extended fingers, and that Kape is scratching and wiping the face of Almabayev like 3 consecutive times, which led to the sequence where he tried to call timeout and then eventually got stopped. Do we let Beltran off the hook for that? Or like, what do you do there? Those are really fast punches. Was that a sequence where you felt like he should have seen it?
Again, I don't think it's the biggest deal in the world that he didn't see it, but that afterwards, there is no acknowledgement that sometimes what you'll see in the NFL is, and they'll take some time to look into it. Let's say that they missed some kind of egregious call. Somebody was, neutral zone infraction that should have been called and it wasn't, and there was still a consequential play that happened afterwards. BC, you know this. They'll take a look at that and then they'll issue a report and then give it to the public to be like, hey, we fucked up on this. They won't change any of the results, like whoever won the game wins the game, but they'll make a note of it. Dude, we're not even going to get that. We're not even going to get that. We're not even going to get any kind of acknowledgement about anything, that anything was mishandled, that anything, or even not even mishandled, could have been handled better. And by the way, if you're at a point where you're getting multiple eye pokes in a fight, however accidental they may be, maybe that proves that there should have been a point taken earlier. And let's see what happens when you actually do that. Whether I would love to see the data on what happens where if a fight has a point taken for eye pokes, how many eye pokes happen subsequent to that. I bet the number drops off pretty fucking rapidly. This is my point. BC, I'm happy to entertain. We have to treat these officials with some degree of forgiveness. It sounds like I'm not doing that, but I actually do believe that. It is a hard job. But if you're going to be forgiving of them, that means on the other end, there has to be some kind of communication with the public, some kind of transparency, and some kind of process that acknowledges an error was made, and we're going to do our best to not do it again. Jason Herzog last week did that of his own volition. He volunteered for that, and that's why we feel better about it. But if they don't do that, we're just left here. Steve Willis owes the public something, and I do think Mike Beltran is a pretty good referee, whether he should have gotten this one right in that particular instance or not. But we're just inheriting a situation. Referees of the fucking MMA world, they're using the old gloves. There's no technological solution now or imminent to assist you with this. It is on you to do something about it. So I am begging you, do something about it.
Long Island Luke, what do you have to say about the way the replays were handled with the eye pokes here?
Yeah, so when he got poked in round 2 and Beltran did stop the fight, they quickly then go to the side referee to look at the replay. That referee says it wasn't an eye poke, so they don't even give Almabayev the time to recover. They continue the fight. Then the broadcast shows the replay. Dom Cruz is like, what the fuck is that? That's a clear eye poke. So I'm a little more annoyed at that than I am at the ones we eventually saw happen right before the finishing sequence where he's running away. Also, the stoppage in general, I know he's running away and you got to defend yourself and all that.
He was turning into the takedown.
Dude, he had a double leg as they stopped the fight. Like, what the fuck is that?
Yeah, but also, dude, you
he was going to lose. He was going to lose.
Well, that, and you can't flee your opponent like that.
I know. But Chelsea Chandler did it against Norma Dumont. No one bats an eye at that. You know what the hell?
I mean, he's like, hey, do you know there's inconsistent reffing standards? And I'm like, yes, I am totally aware.
Well,
you know, but it's a fair point. But
back to that Tank scenario of where he actually could have been DQ'd when they wiped his eyes. People forget sometimes. I know this is the case in boxing. I don't know if there's the same rule in MMA, but if you turn your back to the action at any point in a boxing match for any reason, they can call the fight a TKO loss right there because you have stopped defending yourself. Now, they're not always that like firm because it would be controversial, but like any form of like, I'm not looking at my opponent, I'm not protecting myself, they can jump in and stop it. So it is dangerous in either sport to run away. It's not going to help you. It's just like if you're getting lit up on the ropes, you're behind your high guard, but you're not throwing back at all. You also could get the fight stopped. So it's bang, bang. I don't want to cook Beltran here.
Yeah, but
I hated, but with that said, I hated the stoppage. And I feel really bad for Almabayev, who I do believe was on his way to losing and sort of figuring out where he's at, because Kape looks like a title holder right now. Or a title challenger. I mean, he looks like he's ready. But damn, dude, like to lose like that. You're also in the Apex. You're also probably not getting paid well. I don't know what.
I mean, he's coming in a short notice. I'm going to say this too, and it's not fair. It is absolutely not fair. What I'm about to say is not fair. I'm just saying it's the reality. If you don't speak the same language as your referee, you're taking some risks.
Yes,
you're taking some risks because you need the ability to both hear what they're saying to you as well as to be an advocate for yourself if you're a fighter in those really difficult scenarios. And again, maybe the same language won't save you. And in fact, in many cases it probably won't. But there could be a very critical one where it does. And, to Long Island Luke's point, like where they're reviewing it and being like, yeah, nothing happened here. And then you look at it and you're like, holy fucking shit, this is quite obviously a problem. I'm going to say it one more time, dude. The fighters have to, I don't know what the fuck it could be, but they are so at the mercy of whether it's the promoter, whether it's the manager, whether it's the commission, dude. Everybody just takes from these guys and hardly anybody gives it back. And the dispiriting part about it all, BC, is that I'm not even sure the fighters care about getting what's owed, but I can just look at this situation and be like, my Lord, what an unequal segment of sports that the power relationship between the fighters and the sport itself. It's insane.
Like we always talk about a fighter union under the guise of being paid the fair amount compared to what the promotion is making, but this would seem a good use of a fighter union to go meet with the commissions and really push for rule changes or clarity or some level of understanding higher than that. But the other half of the story is what Kape accomplished, securing a title shot. I believe he did. You did mention they had Pantoja on that UFC post-fight show. And Luke, by the way, a lot of sleuths on the internet saw that the lower third, the cry on there when Pantoja Skyped or zoomed in, I'm sure not Skype, Luke, because they're going to get rid of that.
Still around for now. Yeah.
It said UFC 317 was the little logo next to his name. So I don't know if that was an error or if that was an accident. 316. Yeah. So that's the Newark card, June 7th. Right. I wonder if we're going to see Kape versus Pantoja 2 on that. But let's hear Kape after the fight at the press conference talking about this potential rematch.
And if you get that matchup, how different is that fight going to look this time? It's gonna be very, very different. I'm in another dimension of the fight, and things being good. I'm in my timing. I'm being show. I'm in flow state, and definitely with Pantoja, my style with him is gonna match very well, and I believe that I'm definitely gonna stop him.
And you definitely have shown growth, but can you admit that he's shown growth as well in this time since then?
Yes, but he's being very sloppy. If you see Pantoja, he didn't finish Herseg. He didn't finish Herseg, and Herseg is good, but it's not that good. It's not that level. It's not Kaikara fans just beat him. So you should finish him, and they become very sloppy after the third round. He's been get a lot of like street fight, bully fights, instead a beautiful fight. What I've been show is a beautiful fight, a master class. I've been dominate him. I've been show levels against my opponents, and my opponents wasn't easy opponents. They are tremendous guys that come with 4-win streak and knockouts like Bruno Silva. This guy was coming with 17 win streak. Nobody wants to fight him. He's a heavy wrestler, so that's the reason.
So, Luke, these two fought in a non-title bout, 2021, 3 rounds. Kape did tell me last week that he would have won if it was 5 rounds, but the scores after 3 were 30-27 and 29-28 on the other 2 scorecards in favor of Pantoja. That was 4 years ago, though. How much have the stakes, or not the stakes, but the differences between them changed since then? And how excited would you be if this was the next title shot?
I think, I'll say this. I think Kape is a deserving title challenger, and he, as such, deserves a fight. I think it could go very differently than the first one. I mean, Pantoja is also at the peak of his powers, or seems like he is. I mean, every time I think he's going to fall off because of all the wars, he looks even better the following time. Like I've had a bit of a rough streak in terms of predicting his demise, and so I'm really not in the business of doing that much anymore. At the same time, he is a little bit older. He has a very different kind of skill set than Kape, and Kape's, sniper precision and whatnot could be a big problem. But of course, against Mokaev, you saw that. Again, that was a weird fight. I don't know, what lessons totally to infer from that. But the point I'm trying to make is it's a good style contrast. It's got some rivalry. Kape will talk it up. It's the right fight to make, BC. I'm not saying there aren't other good fighters or guys who, are kind of in that conversation, but Kape's done enough. It's a good fight, good rivalry, nice rematch. Flyweight needs some of that. Let's do it. It's the right fight to make.
Let's bring in our betting and bong expert, Long Island Luke of the Main Card Minute. Luke, what do you think the line should be if we see this rematch in June?
I'm still going to favor Pantoja. I'd probably go like minus 180 Pantoja plus 200 Kape, something like that.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. That's
okay. Does that fight go to a decision or not?
Yes, it does.
Ooh, okay.
Interesting stuff
there
right there. Luke, when you look at the rest of the fight night card, I know you weren't into the fight, but shout out to friend of the program, Cody Brundage, who likes our shit on Instagram.
Listen, let me tell you about what Cody did. Cody put his balls out on the table and said, "Mis pelotas están aquí." You know what I'm saying? He went out there. Listen, those two guys, we said it. We like Cody on the show. We absolutely like Cody on the show, but we didn't know if that was necessarily the best UFC main event on paper, And them two motherfuckers went out there and just hammered the shit out of each other's brains. And first Cody was up, and then Julian came back, and then Cody stormed back. That fight was probably the best version of whatever you were going to get from them in that particular role. So salute. They gave you what they had. You can't ask for more. I'm thrilled.
Yeah. Shout out to South Carolina's Cody Brundage right there, getting that win back. What else did you like on this undercard, Luke? I saw how do you pronounce that correctly? Nasrat Haqparast eye afterwards. It looked pretty gnarly, but he gets a close decision win over All Action Esteban Ribovic. Did this move you at all?
It did. It moved. You know what? Let's bring it back one more time. Bong Island Luke. This is your 30 seconds to bitch about this fight. What do you have to say?
I'm only bitching because Esteban outstruck him by like 20 significant strikes. It was a clear 2-1 to me. PC just mentioned Nasrat's face at the end of the fight. Like, if you're looking at, you want to do the old face test. I mean, it's Esteban's fight. I'm honestly just salty about it because I lost out on a parlay on it. But I want to give a shout out to Sam Patterson, who knocked out Danny Barlow, ended that hype train. Didn't even get a performance bonus. Kind of wild. Probably one of the best finishes of the night.
And did it relatively quickly as well. If I can, BC, though, I'd go in a bit of a different direction. First of all, Andrea Lee, 6 losses in a row. I would imagine this is probably the end of her UFC run. I don't know. I guess we'll see.
Yeah, she'll be running for governor of Hawaii soon if she keeps this up. You know what I mean?
It's up there. As he mentioned, Sam Patterson having the great knockout. That was phenomenal. We talked about the co-main. I got to say, the opening bout on the card, Ramazan Temirov defeating Charles Johnson. Now, Charles Johnson stormed back big in that 3rd round. You can even argue that maybe he got it 2-1. It was very, very competitive. But I hadn't really seen much at all of Ramazan Temirov, and he looked fantastic. Great opening fight on this card. That was phenomenal. And by the way, Mario Pinto absolutely sending Austin Lane to the motherfucking land of wind and ghosts with a 2-hitter. Well, really a 1, but a bop, caught him. Phenomenal knockout by him. Phenomenal.
You were loving it, Luke. Hey, don't forget, people, if you want more UFC coverage, and I know you do. I hear the words. I mean, this is a big boxing weekend, but this Saturday, of course, is UFC 313 in Las Vegas. It is Poatan versus Ankalaev. It is Fiziev versus Gaethje 2. And it is pregame preview this Friday, live, 11 a.m. Eastern from Metal Arc Studio in Manhattan, BC. LT and the man in the damn hat, Chuck Mindenhall. Yin, you excited? Yeah, you want to be there, Luke? Let's take down a couple shots of Cuervo and have some fun. What do you think?
I'll do it. Nothing. Hey, listen, Luke, we need you to drink on the job. Motherfucker, I'll be there.
Are you going to bring Tukey?
We'll see. I might.
Because, I mean, look, in different cultures, Luke, they drink alcohol before the age of 18. They have wine with their parents. Is Tukey going to take a shot? I can't believe I said that out loud. Sorry, Luke. Let's move on. Yeah,
she's 5, BC.
Thank you very much. All right, our final topic surrounds a tradition in boxing, right? From Oscar De La Hoya to Floyd Mayweather to Canelo Alvarez. There's those 2 holidays in Las Vegas representing the Mexican people, Cinco de Mayo in May and Independence Weekend there in September. But we're talking about this Cinco de Mayo in May, where we won't see just one big boxing event. We're going to see 3 of them in consecutive days, with Turki Al-Sheikh having a hand, it seems, to some degree in all 3. So here's what we do know. Friday, May 2nd, actually in Times Square, according to Ring Mag and Turkey on social media, Al-Sheikh has announced the DAZN pay-per-view triple header. We already knew Ryan Garcia versus Rolando Romero at welterweight in the main event. We already knew Devin Haney will take on Jose Ramirez at welterweight in the co-main event, as Haiti has given up that title, which set up that Puello versus Sandor Martin fight at 140 on Saturday night. But Luke, Martin Bakole versus F.A. Ajagba will not happen to open that card. Turkey has added Teofimo Lopez defending his 140-pound title against mandatory unbeaten breakthrough artist Arnold Barbosa Jr. And we have an AI created by Ring Mag look of what Times Square can look like, where reportedly you can't sell tickets to an outdoor event in Times Square.
Yeah.
So I don't know how we're going to do this. Do we have the picture? That's what it could look like there. Remember, we did see that.
I want to be clear. It's not going to look anything like this, but okay.
Okay. Well, that's what we got there. So that's Friday. All right. There you go. Saturday, May 3rd from Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, and supposedly airing in prime time in the U.S. You're going to get Canelo Alvarez on, I believe, DAZN pay-per-view, looking to unify all 4 168-pound titles again when he welcomes unheralded IBF title holder William Skull. I believe you're going to get a Jaime Munguia, Bruno Sarachi rematch in the co-main, among others. And recently teased is the idea that Top Rank will run a show Sunday, May 4th from Las Vegas, where Naiwa Inoue will defend his undisputed 122-pound title, not against David Allen Picasso, as those negotiations have fallen apart, but Ramon Cardenas, a slugger from San Antonio. I've called his fights on Showbox in the past. It looks like he could be the opponent there. And of course, the connection with Turkey is that Naoya Inoue is signed to Riyadh Season and wants to fight 4 times this year, including making his debut in Saudi later in this year. Luke, if this happens, these are 3 pretty damn big fight cards in succession 3 days in a row. I'm not sure we've seen something like this since UFC 200 weekend back in 2016. What are your thoughts on this kind of boxing craziness here?
Well, I mean, there's good and there's bad, right? So first of all, the Canelo versus Skull fight to me is just a gigantic waste of everyone's time. Like, I'm just going to say it out loud. Like that, yeah, it's part of the Cinco de Mayo weekend. That's fine. If you're a Canelo fan, you get to see him back in action again. But for anybody who cares about halfway decent fights, like that's a complete waste of time. The other ones are kind of interesting along the way, BC. And I want to make a point too. Like, you've got Ryan Garcia and Teofimo Lopez on the same card. Boy, that is just a racist's delight. I mean, you're going to get every possible awful thing said probably during the course of that fight week. We're coming off of one between Tank and Roach. I just want to point this out. Like, you know, Roach, obviously, and Tank, they say nasty things to each other. But I think in general, it's within the sort of normal boundaries of what you get with competitive prize fighters. Him and his team carried themselves with class, and I thought Tank didn't really mess anything up either. You know, you're going to get the opposite of that. I just want to point out that there are differences in how this game is played and who plays them and what that means. That being said, putting it on in Times Square, BC, is an interesting idea. We've talked about this before. Now, you'll recall, I've actually been to a combat sports event in Times Square, namely Beat the Streets. This is the USA Wrestling kind of like exhibition that they put on where they'll get like top wrestlers from another country against America's top wrestlers and then other stuff in between. And it's just a showcase to promote USA Wrestling. Turkey is doing it probably to promote the Ring magazine or his boxing business or, you know, whatever. But that could be really, really fun. And let's be clear, you know, whatever else you want to say about Ryan and Rolly and everybody else, these are action fighters. These are action fights. These are, you know, in general, I'm looking at this card, BC, and I'm wondering which one of these is going to be the worst ones, not because I'm expecting the worst, but because I'm actually expecting them to be pretty action-packed. And it's kind of hard to know who's going to pull up the rear, so to speak, in terms of, you know, delivering for the fans. So, like, if you're trying to put a card together in Times Square, these are some of the fights, at least in terms of like on paper, or the ingredients, you know, racism aside, you would put together to make it work. The one thing I'll say is it bums me out. It bums me out to no end that a pound for pound guy in Canelo, granted it's a, you know, whatever, he's trying to get all the belts. I get it, but it's a waste of time. BC, I freaking love Naoya Inoue. We all love Naoya Inoue, but this fight is on no one's fucking radar at all. So it's like, how do we package, BC, the reality that across the globe, the earth, you're going to be getting multiple pound for pound guys competing on the same week while basically a free event takes place in Times Square? You got to be happy about all of that. But the pound for pound guys, BC, not really pulling their weight, are they?
No, I mean, here's the deal.
Am I missing something?
It's supposed to be a free event, the Times Square one, because of the rules on selling tickets. So there's going to be a certain amount of space that spectators can come and bleachers. But that's a pay-per-view. And I like these 3 matchups. I like all 3 of them to certain levels of degrees, but I get where everyone's saying it's not like this is Ryan Garcia versus Haney 2. This is to build to that, and it's still a pay-per-view. You know, it is what it is on that regard. There's a lot of thought that Cardenas, who is a good fighter, does have power, maybe is only in this spot because of his Mexican heritage, so you can have a fight in Vegas on Cinco de Mayo weekend. So I'm glad that one promoter at least is trying to take advantage of that. Yeah, it is going to be interesting. This is the Friday night one in Times Square is the second Ring Magazine branded card that Turkey's going to roll out after that Conor Benn, Chris Eubank one in April. So I hate the Saturday fight, but I really like the matchups on this Friday fight and where they're going to go next. What do you think about the news that we have heard overnight added to this? The fact that Jim Lampley, the famous voice of HBO boxing that so many of us grew up with and have beloved, he has not called the fight since the end of HBO in 2018. He almost called that Teofimo Kambosos fight that was supposed to be on Triller, but then that fight fell apart. Triller defaulted on it, and that ended up on DAZN. Turkey met with Jim Lampley. They put out a picture, and Jim Lampley's going to do play-by-play on this card with Haney, Garcia, and Teofimo. No word yet if they're going to go the full ex-HBO route and add Roy Jones and Max Kellerman. I saw Al Bernstein kind of pitch it out there on Twitter that he would like to be involved. We've seen Jim of late. It's great to catch up with him. I like that he's making the rounds on media. He's got great insights on the sport and the history. You think this will be a big deal, Luke? You think this will pull out the nostalgia and the boxing fans to have Lampley's voice back in Times Square with these big names on this card?
No, not really. It's probably just a goodwill thing to get on the right side of American boxing fans, which is fine. I like Jim a lot, but I'm just going to say this. There's a lot of old motherfuckers in boxing, and to me, BC, you don't have to chime in here. I'm just going to make my point. There's not many chairs available for broadcasting jobs in boxing. They're very, very difficult to get. They take time. You have to be very good. Kind of got to know the right people depending on who it is. It's tough. It's real tough. What makes it even harder is when, you see a lot of the boxing guys who just hold these jobs for decades, and in part because they're really good, but in part because this is just all that they know. And it doesn't really allow for a new generation, a new crop to come up and I'm not going to say easily supplant them, but, for a natural handoff. So I'm happy to see Jim back in the sense, I don't think he's going to, I don't think it's some scourge where he's taking jobs from everybody, but I just look at, and then again, he would be doing play-by-play. You don't even do that necessarily, BC, but I'm just going to point this out. This was the biggest assignment of your career last weekend. It shouldn't have taken this long for you to get that far. I think you've been ready for it a very long time. And to me, what boxing needs is a lot more fresh blood, not the opposite, even if we can grant that Jim Lampley is probably one of the very best, if not the best from play-by-play perspective to ever do it. And I have total respect for him, but it's time for some fresh faces. And I'm not trying to be a hater saying that. I'm trying to acknowledge all of the new great broadcasting folks that are out there. And BC, I think you're obviously at the front of that pack. So that's just my view on the whole thing.
I appreciate those kind words and sentiments, and I do have a lot of love for all those guys as well. So
we learned a lot from them. We learned a lot from them.
Oh yeah,
but it's also it's time to move it along a little bit.
Early odds have Rolly plus 480 against the minus 700 Ryan Garcia. Devin Haney minus 1,000. This is the one that popped me. Minus 1,000 against the plus 630 Jose Ramirez. Now, Luke, Haney should win this. But he's coming off a year layoff, a fight in which he was dropped a whole bunch of times, the worst year of PR he could have had, and he tried to sue Ryan Garcia, and he's a minus 1,000 betting favorite against the former unified champion at 140 who still got something left. Yeah, he did lose to Arnold Barbosa, but I don't know. I thought that was a little bit interesting.
I think it's a little strong, but not that much. I don't think it's crazy. I think Ramirez is a little bit past it.
Minus 3,000 for Canelo to the plus 1,100 goal. And then Teo will be minus 300 Teofimo against the plus 220 Arnold Barboza. That might be the best fight of that weekend in terms of competitiveness. And we don't really know what's going to happen.
Yes. Ryan and Rolly is the one that's got the most explosive potential, you think? Yes. But I agree with you. Teo versus Barboza is the one that's actually got some real legitimate, talent between them.
All right, that'll wrap up our 5 topics. Now we get the opportunity for you to ask us questions, and every Sunday night at Morning Kombat on Instagram and X, we put out the poll. We let you pull us. No, we poll you to ask us No, it's your poll. And here's your questions, and we'll give you some crappy answers. This one's called DMs from Donks. That's just disgusting. Anyway, our first question comes from D Sarge 1997, and D Sarge, Les Luke often says it's not your fault. You were born in the late 90s and don't get any of our references. He says, except for Francis, I think he's talking about Ngannou, unless he's talking about former Hartford Whalers center Ron Francis, shout out. Are there any heavyweights that the UFC could sign that would inject some life into the division?
Yes.
And I'll add to this that Tom Aspinall just put out a video on a train yesterday updating and saying he wants to fight Jones. He doesn't know what the issue is. The issue is Jones. He doesn't know if it's about money, blah, blah, blah. He's still willing to retire Jones by never fighting him. But Luke, who can they sign? It's the same question you can ask PFL regarding who can you get to fight Francis. Who could the UFC sign?
BC, just noodle something for a second, right? I mean, are there names you could sign? Anatoly Malakin you could sign. Vadim Nemkov, even though he's Team Fedor, you could sign him, or at least, in theory, soon you could sign him. Rug, these are guys that eventually will come up that you could sign, right? I mean, it's not immediately available, but you would imagine over time, these are things you could go after. I just want to point out something. That division is in insane disrepair, and they would rather let Francis sit in exile forever than bring him back and re-inject some fucking life into that division. That tells you not only the strength of their market position, that they don't even give a fuck that the division is just ass. I mean, butt cheeks right now. And they're not going to do anything to even bother fixing it, even though Francis by himself, let's be fair, of course, could not fix it. But it would go a long way towards creating some potentially compelling matchups all the way around. And it doesn't look like that's even something they'll even consider. That says a lot, I think, about the state of both the heavyweight division as well as the UFC's sort of control of it all.
Yeah. I mean, I think the only answer to here is which light heavyweights can bulk up and move up to heavyweight. That's where we're at. I really wish there's a lot happening with TKO Global. We know this, right? They've taken over pro wrestling, mixed martial arts, and now we hear not the rumors, we hear them talking on the sales call, this idea that they're going to partner with Turkey, put out a boxing prospect league, and handle big pay-per-views a couple a year. I really wish the powers that be would look at this in a non-Dana holding grudge type of way and just say, look at the money we can make by potentially bringing Francis back. Now, look, I know he's under contract right now, but like, whether it's co-promotion, whether it's signing him, I agree with you. What an egregious turn to just be like, oh, that guy doesn't want it. F him. We'll never talk about him or show him again on camera. Like, yeah. All right. Great. Thank you. Let's go to question number 2 from JD Roseman. His maiden name, by the way, is Von Amsterdam, by the way. He says, that's Jake, our guy, our documentarian. He says, BC, did you get a good smell of any fighter during the post-fight interview? Who smelled the best, if so? Always curious. I did not necessarily, to answer your question, Jake, get any bad smells, but while I am in my suit, it is interesting. As soon as the fight ends, right, I'm in the ring ready to jump in and interview, oftentimes not knowing the result, although I did peep over Jimmy Lennon's shoulder as he was walking into the ring, and I saw that it was going to be a draw, and I was just like, oh my God, like, holy crap. And then what happens is usually like the sanctioning bodies and the team, they're trying to take pictures, and in my ear, they're like, get in there, it's interview time. So I got to push people around, and I end up putting my arms around the fighters and pushing them into me. And that stains my suit full of blood and sweat, Luke. It's part of the job. But who smelled best this weekend, not worst, is Joe Goosen. Dude, Joe Goosen, who we already know, great guy, Hall of Fame trainer, pretty damn great broadcaster throughout his career, the best dresser in all of boxing. Dude, when he walks in a building, you can smell that cologne and you know he's coming. There ain't nobody like Joe Goosen. I had a great time with him this weekend, by the way, hanging out. But no, I didn't necessarily, Jake, smell anybody awful and have to report. But Luke, I'm sure while you were watching the fights and live streaming, your office smelled like a sewage
butthole.
Yeah, an absolute butthole. Yes. There you go. Thank you so much. All right, our next question comes from a regular in these parts. They call him Flannels and Jits, and he says, how excited are you guys for CJI 2? That, of course, is the Craig Jones Grappling Invitational. And Luke, will you do a watch along for it?
I tell you what, I would love to go to it. I mean, I don't know if that's possible with my schedule, my fam. I have no idea, but I'd
love you to work at it as a broadcaster.
Yeah, I don't think that's in the cards, but I appreciate that. But nevertheless, either way, I would freaking love to go to it. I think it's going to be the same thing, Thomas and Mack Center again, out in Las Vegas, and of course, no ADCC this year, so they've got free reign. And I've been following Craig's journey. He's back in Austin this week, actually, and so, I mean, at a bare minimum, I'll have some live coverage of it. But what I really want is to go. I want to go. Yeah.
Great question here from Sticks Playtime. Luke, what are your favorite movies to watch while deep in row 8?
That's such a great question. That's a great question.
Half baked, brother.
No,
okay?
You know what? I'm going to say this. I think the best movies to watch if you're high are movies that you love but have seen a million times, You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
I can't do new stuff when I'm high because all of a sudden I forget it. I can't remember what's going on. But the old stuff, it hits, and then you just feel it, like that old memory, whatever it is, that old feeling comes flooding back. I think that's the move. I don't know. Maybe you have a different view.
No, I agree with you. I mean, I'm gonna play the hits. Half Baked, Tommy Boy, the first Harold and Kumar. Here's Dazed and Confused. And here's a left field one. I don't know if you remember it, with Alec Baldwin, and he didn't shoot anybody in this movie. Outside Providence. Do you remember that stoner flick from the late 90s?
I don't know.
All right.
BC, have you ever seen the movie Glenn Ross?
I have not.
Holy shit. We got to watch that one too.
It's on Broadway right now with like Bill Burr and Kieran Culkin.
Have you seen the movie though?
No, but I actually just did a job last week and they were referencing it a shitload and I had no idea what they were talking about.
Look at me. Put the camera on me for a second.
Oh,
ready?
wow.
Put the camera. Ready? Coffee is for closers. There you go. That's my Glenn Ross impression right there.
So is vaping, apparently. Luke, are you gonna
No, I haven't, dude. Ever since I've had my lung issue, I haven't vaped in months. Nothing.
How about energy drinks? Because those will kill you too, Luke.
Okay, you don't know what you're talking about with energy drinks. I think it's only a problem if you get the energy drinks with the 300 milligrams of caffeine, and I have dialed all of those back. All of the ones I have are 200 or less, which is basically 2 cups of coffee and a little bit of change. Not that much.
All right. Our protector, the backbone of this operation, our producer Matt Snyder says great movie on the Glenn Ross reference.
It's fucking incredible. It's very good.
All right. I'm not that cultured, Luke, so I fit in a certain niche.
Yeah, but you know what though? You would like it though. Like, because there's a scene where Alec Baldwin goes in there and starts fucking bossing these douchebags around, and it's incredible to watch.
Do you remember when we flew back from the London live show and Saul from Chase and Status gave us those gimmicks, Luke, those fantastic gimmicks? You remember that?
What do you mean? Oh, yes. I do. He reached out to me recently, by the way. He
I love that
wanted
guy.
to say hi. Yeah, he's
he
awesome.
Gifted us the greatest Athro gift you could. And I had to fly from London to Dallas direct to work on that Showtime card. I watched the first Harold and Kumar for like the first time in like 10 years and was like dripping crying watching.
Okay, can I make a confession?
Yeah.
I've never seen Harold and Kumar.
Oh my God, dude. It's so
Am I
good.
fucking it up? Am I fucking up?
I mean, it's a goofball stoner movie, but it's legendary in my opinion. But
okay. All right. Duly noted.
Snyder says that's peak Pacino, by the way. Is he in Glenn Ross?
Yeah, not only is he in it, he is insanely good in it. Like,
Snyder says it's up there with his performance in Scent of a Woman, which we all know.
He's telling the truth. He's telling the truth. Yes.
Okay. All right, here we go. Let's keep it going here. We have one more. This is from Elvis_NG. Can we get BC's current MMA strawweight rankings? Do you need the are we talking fighting ability or are we talking Patreon show? What are we doing here, Luke? Hey, yeah.
Hold on. I want to send this in the chat. I don't know if we have time for it later, but I'm going to send this to everyone later.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, what do they want me to say, Luke? What do they want me to say? Thank you. I'll update my rankings for this week's Brian Campbell Ramble chat. So check that out. Thank you very much.
Good.
So that is DMs from Donks, and a reminder to reach the show morningkombat@gmail.com for dead wrongs, for fan subs, and we are trying to make fan subs great again. So it's up to you guys. I believe before we get into this shit, Long Island Luke has done a solid, and he's grabbed the photo of Christian DeGuerro that we're talking about here. Long Island, can you pump that out there?
Yeah, there it
Those
is.
were the trunks. First of all, shout out to Parking Pros, his ass sponsor. But Luke, we got the dick. Okay, all right.
Yeah, that's the motto of Morning Kombat. We got the dick.
We definitely do. Thank you, Christian DeGuerro, for always repping us, whether you're training with Tony Ferguson while wearing an MK shirt or just living your life. Okay, brother. Hope you enjoyed. I think he went out for fast food afterwards. Long camp, Luke, right? Luke, do you have a favorite fast food? Is there one fast food that is the king in your eyes?
Taco Bell.
I love that.
When it's time to go for the bell, your buddy makes that move. I mean, yeah, if we're just 5 guys in and out, all that stuff, but Taco Bell.
Luke, should you perish before me? And should there be
which is an inevitability.
And should there be a ceremony where people get up and give speeches about how great you were. I will instantly recall my favorite times with you where you're like, yo, BC, you want some Taco Bell? And I'm like, well, I kind of just ate it. I'm not sure. You're like, no, you're going to eat some Taco Bell. I'm going to get some. Hold on. And then $79 later, we have every item on the menu as we're filming an old school RSD. I mean,
Dude,
what a time.
I've told the story. After I did Rogan show in October of 2020, I crawled because I forget, we recorded it at like noon or something. So it was done at like 3:34, and I walked outside and it was still daylight, and my hotel was just across, like not far. It was walkable. So I walked back to the hotel, and I was kind of coming down from the experience, and I ordered, I think, like $70 of Taco Bell, like the fattest amount a fat guy has ever ordered from there. I didn't eat all of it because there's no way I could, but I definitely indulged.
All right. Great stuff. It's time for our final segment, folks. Unless, Luke, you want to run that thing that you put in there now. Do you want to?
Oh, no. I want, I don't know if we, let's wait.
Okay.
I was going to say, I don't have it ready.
Sorry. I scour the globe every Sunday to find viral videos that'll make Luke Thomas emote. This one's called, Have You Seen This Shit? Now, Luke, the great by the way, the great O'Teal Burbridge even texted me last week that that scene I showed at the end with the guy shitting himself to explosive Joseph A. Bank levels. That was too far. He says that was too far.
Let me also say this: they're beating our ass with this segment, where like half the shows we do are getting shut down because of the nature of how YouTube just polices copyright at this point. So, have we done our due diligence to avoid that today?
Yes, we have. We'll only get fired due to indecency today.
Okay. Very good.
All right, Luke, this first clip gives new meaning to the term run to daylight.
What? Get set, go!
Sounded like Stone Cold just entered the building right there. Wow, that was something here. Luke, you know what we should do on this? I mean, we've accidentally shown, what was it, up to 3 deaths on this segment in the history, including
right, give or take.
That circus performer. New segment alert called Faces of Death. Let's bring it back. First, we got dancers. I just need you to tell me if they died or not, Luke. So they're performing. It's going great.
Yeah, they look like they're all having a good time.
Nice dance troupe, I think they call it right here.
Okay,
God.
we just watched the death of 15 people. All right, that's a nice show.
Let's add them to our what do they call that? Body count, Luke? Is that what they call that? Okay, all right.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Now it's time for your deep dive of the week. Tell me if you think this person perished, Luke.
Okay, well, that's a thing that BC, was that you in high school? What was that?
No. Is that a bass fishing store? You ever go to there? Look, there's Bass Pro Shops. There's a lot of weird things in there, like
I have never been to a Bass Pro Shops. I've been to a million gun ranges and stores. I've never been to a Bass Pro Shops.
Our final Faces of Death clip goes out to the golf course. Watch this, Luke. 4? Yep, 4.
All right, let's see what happens here.
I mean, more like forget
Bong! Take a dive, you old ass bitch.
Wow, KO 1. Yes.
Yeah, well, don't you go dying on me.
Luke, you remember when Fan Man interrupted Bo Holyfield too, right?
Oh, buddy, boxing at its finest.
Watch this.
Массовик, затейник, Татьяна. В деле? О!
Who brought the dick, right, Luke? Yeah.
Who brought the dick?
Luke, what is the soccer team called? Millwall. Is that like low-level English league?
I don't watch that bullshit.
Yeah, it is actually.
All right, so you know how soccer stadiums have in the UK have their own fan section separated? I'm sure they have in South America too. This one drunk fan from at the Millwall game entered the opposing team.
Oh, he's gonna get fucking demolished.
And
they're gonna beat him to death.
Let's see. Be the final death of this segment.
Yeah. Oh, you lasted 2 strikes before they jumped your bitch ass.
Yeah, that was like me after the junior prom, Luke, right?
This is BC to his nutsack after the event on Saturday.
That is wild. All right, time for your shirts of the week. Luke, this one probably be caught on you at one point, right?
Everything I love is illegal, expensive, or Latino. Yes, that is in fact the way in which I have lived my life. Yes.
Luke, you never see a happy couple. They end up buying like matching shirts. You know what I mean? Like
Disney World, I see a lot of those. Yeah.
Yeah. You ever seen this family at a Phillies game before?
Come in peace. Dude, she was in on the bit. I give credit to her. She was in on the bit.
He was in too, Luke, deep in. There's no question about that.
That is awesome.
Shout out to your Super Bowl champion Eagles, but you can find some jerseys on the discount rack of ex-players, Luke.
What, they got like Melvin Aguilar here? No. My favorite Italian player. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely. All right, great gift ideas for Luke for the holidays if anybody's watching.
We fucking on the Cannibal Corpse bed tonight. So I've got that on a shirt and socks. All I need now is this shit.
Yeah, that's gross. Luke, can you rate this gentleman's form when it comes to weightlifting?
Those are some big ass dicks.
Very erect form. Yes.
Yeah, he's on an earthquake bar. Wow, look at the hogs just hanging, buddy. I mean,
wow.
That is, dude, where would you even buy dicks like that? I don't even know. It's like we've got the monster trucks of dicks. Like I don't even where do you get that? Where does that even thing?
I gotta ask Big Kev to find out where your boy over there. Let's go. Hey, Dustin Poirier showed up at a comedy show and they roasted the shit out of him.
Dustin, hold on, Dustin. I don't want to fight you. Actually, I ain't scared of you, bro. I know how to take you down, bro. All I gotta do is get behind the title. You'll never reach me.
Wow, 10-7 right there on Pwawi way. That is
I give him credit. They went for it. That's how you do it.
Yeah. I forgot what this video is. All I wrote down is I can't stop. Let's see what happens.
I'm so tired. I'm so tired. I can't stop. I cannot stop. I cannot stop. Oh, fuck, man. Dude, I'm sorry. I could not stop. My bad. You all right? Yeah.
I mean, the guy couldn't stop.
That's how BC treats me when we're on the road. And I'm like, hey, BC, do you want to go get dinner? His reaction was the same as that guy's reaction who got kissed. That's his reaction.
Luke, let's see our haircut of the week. I don't know if you're into this. I don't know if your barber offers this, the headband cut.
Do they come with executions? Send this person to Saudi Arabia and tell him he hates the government.
Speaking of hoopers, Luke, it's time to hit the hardwood. Check out this pocket rocket guy. He's our hooper of the week. Watch this move. Nice head fake. Wow. It's like he was tossing a football, right? Right into the hoop. That was great.
Which MMA journalist can I compare him to make them feel sad?
Mark Raymundi, but he's an NFL journalist now. All right.
I like how Mark Raymundi had to fucking throw that thing like a medieval,
yeah,
like a high ally or something.
Luke, watch the ending of this youth basketball game. It doesn't get more heartbreaking than this.
Oh, they stole it off the fucking inbound. Bah! Oh no! He's gonna throw it. Is it gonna go in?
They won the game on that. Yes,
dude. High school's full of stuff like that. That's great.
Yeah. Do you know what the regional MMA scene is full of?
Losers.
Ridiculousness. Watch this sequence.
Okay, he's getting walked down and he iced the referee with the rolling thunder.
Indeed.
Can't be doing that, bro. Can't be doing
that.
That's
payback for not calling that eye poke, Luke, right?
Yeah, well, why could you be more out of position, referee? Jesus. Bah.
Damn. Luke, I don't know if you go to the arcades much anymore, but the games are like really mature.
I'd go if that's what they had in my arcade.
I wouldn't mind losing that game, to be fair. Right?
Yeah, it's like, you guys win again.
Luke, you ever played Double Dutch as a kid? with jump ropes. Were you into that?
Yeah, of course.
That was big in the mid 80s when I was little.
Huge. Duck.
But what happens if you don't have a jump rope? This village solved that problem.
This seems unethical. I don't. Is Bernie alive? I am uncomfortable watching this. I have to tell you, this is. And dude, they threw him like Hasbullah, fucking like he's yesterday's trash. Holy shit!
Luke, do you mess with feet much? You know what I mean? I
just got a pedicure for the first time.
That's true. I always felt it weird that they call it the balls of your feet. Like it doesn't really make a lot of sense. Watch this video.
And then turn the foot to the outside and work the testicle area, which is on the lateral side of the foot, again midway between the ankle bone and the tip of the heel.
Execute both of them right now.
You just gotta rub
both of them right now.
The testicles of the foot. Hey, Lucas.
Just call it the fucking heel, but okay. All right.
That's fair. It's time to get flatulent. So we're going to have some fun with this. Okay. Speaking of Taco Bell, have you ever had Taco Bell and then won at the end? Right. You know what I'm talking about? Watch what this guy did.
When you combine all Taco Bell sauces into one master sauce.
Dude, that's a devastation right there, right?
That's for amateurs. I can have their hottest sauce and it does absolutely nothing to me.
All right. Maybe we had the wrong store. Maybe that was the Joseph A. Banks post.
Yeah, no, I completely demolished that one.
You ever get the samples at Costco? I've never seen this one offered.
I have, yeah. How are we supposed to sample this? Why is she wearing gloves? I might take that into the bathroom, know what I'm saying? Shit.
You remember that movie Eat, Pray, Love? I think they're working on a sequel.
Wasn't it a book?
Yeah, it was a book. Connecticut based, actually. But let's see it.
Eat shit and die.
Yeah,
you know what? Those are words I live by.
The author of that book, by the way, I used to buy my Christmas trees from her parents at the house she grew up in Litchfield, Connecticut. Randomly enough.
I'm always thinking of the Joy Luck Club, which was Amy Tan. Who is the author of Eat, Pray, Love?
Elizabeth something, I think. I don't remember. Warren? I don't know. Something like that. I could be
senator.
Oh, yeah. Elizabeth Warren, the senator. I don't know if she wrote that book, too. Anyway, let's keep the toilet fun going, Luke. Sometimes it can get rough in there. Have you thought about installing this in your house? Oh, sorry. Well, yeah, you might need to first of all, right?
Dude, my home is the fart room.
Got it. Well, you could try this in your actual bathroom. Let's keep the fun going. Those are for motorhomes, by the way, Luke, but I could see you using that in your bathroom.
Dude, I needed that at Joseph A. Bank. That's what I needed, and I didn't have any help.
And if you really want to get big in the toilet game, you'll add in the Bose speakers. Check this out.
Bose noise canceling toilet. Wife, what do you want for your birthday? Me. Oh, I don't want noise canceling at all. In fact, I would prefer to have noise projecting.
There you go.
That's the way you really dominate your kingdom.
Long Island Luke reminding us that Elizabeth Gilbert of Connecticut wrote Eat, Pray, Love. Thank you very much. Finally, Luke, our final segment is about never forgetting. What are your thoughts on this Pakistan Airlines promo?
Didn't have to be this way.
Yeah, I agree with you. It kind of reminds me of something, right?
Yeah, a little bit, maybe.
Yeah, I don't think we need to be remembering that on this show. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Anyway, we got one more clip. Let's watch it.
Bro, look at these sweet ass beer towers we got. This shit's fucking sick. Oh, whoa, what the fuck? No.
I mean, I think, that's a little insensitive these days, but that's the shit of the week. I hope you saw it. All right. Thank you.
I saw this reel on Insta where it was some guy being like, it had like the year written below him. He's doing a bit, obviously. And it's like 2002. And, it's a question about like 9/11 jokes. It's like, man, what's wrong with you? Why would you do it? And then it's like 2012. And it's like, all right, man, like, that's funny, but, let's move this along. And then it was like 2022. And it was just straight up hardcore 9/11 humor. And I was like, I didn't even know that was a thing until Brian Campbell entered my life. And now I can understand the reels. Now I get it. Now I totally
that ended with that man opening a 9/11 ridiculous souvenir store.
Yes. Yes. Look what we have. Yes.
Like a spared Halloween store of 9/11. Anyway, that's that no more morbid crap. That's it. That's the damn show. A reminder that this great episode of Morning Kombat was brought to you by DraftKings. And of course, the DraftKings, the crown is yours. Thank you very much. I have to pee my pants, Luke. Is there anything else you want to tell the people outside of pregame preview Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern, brought to you by Cuervo? Be there.
That's it. Be there live at 11 a.m. in the East on Friday. You, me, BC, Chuck Mindenhall. Let's have a good time. Not the biggest, best card ever, but it is Poeton. It's Poeton Fight Week. Let's lean into it and have a good time.
All right. I'm going to soil myself. Long Island Luke, do you want to say goodbye to the people at all? Or are you like already on the
but I will be in 5 minutes. Goodbye, the people. All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. For Luke Thomas, I'm BC. Take care of yourselves. We love you. Thank you for tuning in. We'll be back with some MMA this week, and we're going to hit it hard. Until then, gains, loyalty, and wipe sitting, because it's like what normal people would do. We're out of here. Yeah, that's great. Yeah.